Sonic Special Worlds Unite Battles 1. So this is needlessly confusing. Special Worlds Unite Battles is next to my timeline. I looked it up and I found two separate stories. One for Sonic and one for Mega Man. And neither of them start with Sonic and Mega Man fighting. Instead, it's going to be an entire issue showing why Sonic lost to the Zeddy and got roboticized. But that's just giant padding that pisses me off because we didn't need to see an entire issue with that. That'll probably make his capture go from perfectly logical to forced. And so obviously, if he could have ever gotten to attack them with a spin dash, his super speed would have injured all of them because they're organic beings, not robots with tough metal skin. I was perfectly fine with Sonic getting captured because Zavok kept punching the ground and sending him upwards from shockwaves, meaning he wouldn't have been able to attack them before getting knocked out. That doesn't need to be an entire issue. It was fine just being 2 panels. But now an entire issue will be wasted. So for some reason it's not Zavok who goes through the portal first, even though he's the leader, but he's still the first to attack Sonic, sending him upwards with a shockwave that damages the ground. I assume that Sonic had been captured successfully because Zavok just kept hitting the ground without stopping until Zeddy went over to him when he was in the air and smacked him in the head. But you can't write a whole issue about that. So instead, Zavok grabs the idiot ball and inexplicably stops hitting the ground just to have an overall fight that's longer and has more variety. Like Sonic getting the chance to charge up a spin dash just to get smacked with a wrecking ball. This story is not canon to me. It didn't need to exist. I'm surprised any of the Zeddy can still talk to him when they're brainwashed with glowing eyes, let alone say hi, which is useless to Sigma, when their will has been replaced by Sigma's. I'm not sure I want them to talk if reading their boring dialogue will just make the redundant story take longer to get through. Surprisingly, the entire fight doesn't take place in one location, as Sonic gets knocked through the Genesis portal to, not Sigma's base, which would be common sense since they want to roboticize Sonic, and that's what the Zeddy's portal was connected to. Instead, he gets warped to Station Square. Apparently, there were 2 portals at once that popped up here. I thought the Genesis portal was exclusively stuck to teleporting people to other universes, or time periods if we're supposed to believe Silver's bad feature is Sonic's, making what Sonic's fighting for pointless as life will only get worse. This is so nonsensical. Sonic asking how makes it confusing instead of explaining it. I can't help but find it entertaining to see Sonic get hit given such a tough fight though, because it's so rare and he's annoying in this comic. It doesn't make any sense that the story was padded out by one of the Zeddys saying they have to introduce themselves to him to be polite. It's even more confusing because Zavok and Emo don't even want to do this and find it tedious or pointless. And all the time they were talking to Sonic, one of them logically would have grabbed him and held him still above the ground. If Kodos could do it to Sonic, Zavok could. Then he gets smacked in the head and knocked out. The fight wouldn't last longer than this. I guess Sonic Super Special Magazine 9 is completely non-canon then, because we clearly saw Sonic going to the Lost Hex and Eggman enslaving the Zeddy, and yet all the way at this point, this is when he first meets the Zeddy. There's no reason Sonic would have just stood still like a statue the whole time and listened to them talk when they were just pummeling him. He could have easily run away from them and gone home, and the whole arc never would have happened. And he doesn't look confident here. He was just showing how competent they are. So is this really about him assuming he'd be able to win against them? Because he doesn't have to fight them. He thinks they're organic beings. He can take off and get back up from his friends. It's not like the Deadly Six all tell Sonic their names. Zavok just says greetings, and one of them says they're the Deadly Six. I mean, couldn't they have said all that to Sonic while they were attacking him, instead of stopping the action entirely for no reason? It would also be only polite for them to tell Sonic why they want to capture him, or not do it at all. But instead, Sonic still has no idea what's going on. He homie attacks 3 of them, and even though they clearly looked in pain from it, he doesn't take care of them. Because even a character in the story has a better grasp on logic than the writer did. He knew to have Sonic assume this, and he still didn't write it that way. Sure, Sonic must have not been using his full speed against them because they're organic beings, and he doesn't want to be a murderer, but that's going to be his downfall. Even then, you'd think he'd still know to hit them hard enough to knock them out, and know how to hit organic beings just right so that's not lethal, but has even the slightest bit of effect, because he's fought Eggman's soldiers before. They clearly looked in pain there, but the next panel they're just fine, and Zavok doesn't explain that they have rings, or that their armor magically heals them from any attack ridiculously fast as if they have rings. Instead, his dialogue's irritating when it could have filled in the plot hole instead of leaving the plot as annoying and arbitrary. Also, I don't like that Sonic said a homing attack will take care of them, not you. Like he's talking about them as if they can't hear him, or he's just talking to the audience. Some civilians cheer for Sonic, which heartwarmingly cheers him up in a fight we know he's gonna lose. I guess I have to assume that the reason Sonic doesn't choose now as the perfect time to run away from this hopeless fight is that he looks like a coward in front of all these people who have faith in him. He's overconfident that he can win even now when he just saw that they're invincible. And, as should be made more obvious, he thinks the Zeddy will hurt the innocent people if he runs away. Like they'd interrogate him trying to find out where Sonic could have gone to. One of the civilians could have been written to tell Sonic to protect them or something. The closest we get to that is that one of the Zeddy throws energy around and threatens to kill the civilians for being happy. It's not like Xena's known for being cheerful, just feminine, so it's a bit confusing that the supposed villain is annoyed with him for that. Sonic may not be able to attack them by directly using a spin attack on them, but that shouldn't stop him. I've already read Archie where he can attack in creative ways. He can create a tornado just by running around. He should be written to do that at least once. Then when the villains aren't even hurt by falling out of the tornado from a high height, they make it clear that they are in fact invincible. But I guess Sonic's whole problem is that he's severely holding back because they're organic beings, not robots. So he wouldn't send them into a tornado because that should kill them. But the problem is, they have glowing eyes as if they are robots, and he's never seen Zeddy before, apparently. They've even got special abilities. Zord just threw energy at him from his hand. Couldn't he come to the conclusion that they're robots that just look like they have hair from their glowing eyes alone? Scratch and Grounder have normal text bubbles, not like that proves they aren't robots. So Sonic jumps in front of people and takes the energy blast, which at least looks like it hurts him. And there's no civilians drawn in the next panel, which makes it confusing because we still see text bubbles from them praising Sonic, but they're not connected to anyone. Sonic gloats that they're not going to win today, and Zord tells Zavik to attack him while he's gloating, but in all the time Zord was spending saying that, you'd think Sonic would have actually done something, like dodged the attack that Zord clearly just telegraphed for him. Zavik would have looked smart if he had punched him and interrupted Sonic, but instead waited for no reason, and Zord had to tell him to punch him. So that just made all of them look stupid. I don't even get to see Zavik's fists collide with Sonic, so why should I care? Sonic gets hit into Xena, and that gets her wet from a puddle, and Zavik suddenly laughs at her because she was upset about it. Well, at least that gives life to Zavik's character instead of him always being the serious or smug big bad guy. Because I never thought he'd do that. It seems like their personalities are actually intact. They aren't just silent, brainwashed zombies. That's good. I'd rather see one-dimensional personalities than none. Fortunately, Xena doesn't stupidly lash out at Zavik for this, and instead hits Sonic through another portal that came out complete nowhere. Seriously, why do they keep showing up? Here of all places. There could have been a village in Green Hill Zone, and that could have been the source of those civilians, instead of him being sent to Station Square. So he gets hit through a portal, not that I even see her fist hit him, and he's in a deserted Eggman junkyard. Oh yeah, because it makes so much sense that Eggman wouldn't save money by reusing his stuff instead of just leaving it in a junkyard and buying new metal. Or save time at least if he gets it for free. Also, Xena's suddenly not wet anymore. The artist doesn't even care about the most basic of continuity in that department when that could have been a bit interesting. The Zeddy used their magnetic power to bring the old robots back to life. So, the Zeddy are already able to telekinetically control the materials of robots, whether they're functional robots or not. How did they not just take over Sigma then? And this is supremely insulting. Sonic's defeated tons of badniks before, and yet he inexplicably thinks that this energy is too strong, and there's too many of them. How would he think the energy is too strong? It's not like he's made of metal, so why would he be affected by magnetic power? We aren't told that his shoes are made of metal, and they're using magnetic power to keep his shoes glued to the pavement he's on or something. He literally just stands there and does nothing and lets the badniks knock him out. Do you know how many badniks are in Green Hill Zone alone? At least in Sonic the Comic, he got knocked out by badniks 2 times, but that was justified because they shocked him with electricity after he ran into them within a dead end. Sonic would obviously have jumped into the air and homie attacked or spin dashed through all of them effortlessly. It's magnetic power, not literally electricity surrounding them that would hurt him if he came into contact with them. This is the most insultingly, patronizingly stupid writing I've seen in a very long time. The writer just completely gave up. Not even a fanfiction would write Sonic this lame. I was right to dismiss this issue as non-canon. I had faith that the fight wouldn't end with wimpifying Sonic to justify his capture, But not even that expectation was met. Nobody needed to read this. Sonic wasn't already too injured to walk or spin dash at this point. And he had the time to think and say entire text bubbles, which means that he had plenty of time to get away from them or attack them, and instead stood as still as a statue. Him being captured by the weakest robots in history, which includes freaking motorbugs and buzz bombers, would only make sense if it was written literally any other way than this. This is all frustrating because the writer was too gutless to have him be actually injured. I couldn't even buy this being a fate of Cream. Cream can fly, so she would have just flown away from them. Unless it was explained that buzz bombers fly faster than she can, but even then, she would have taken them and punched them if she had to. She could have thrown cheese at them. I don't think even a regular person would have gotten captured like this, because they would have gone up and run away too, not just stood there. Sonic didn't get a broken leg. Sonic Boom had his leg injured once, so there's no excuse. Nearly all of these robots are famously slow compared to Sonic, and yet they effortlessly gang up on and knock out the fastest thing alive when it could have easily just jumped. It's especially frustrating because you know that if this was one of the video games and you were controlling Sonic, there's no way in hell this would have been the end result. You would have pressed the A button and just beaten all of them effortlessly. These aren't even tough badniks that you run into all the time. These are from the first two zones, and then Grounders from Labyrinth Zone. This is no different than if Mario got kidnapped by Goombas. This ending was the most insulting to my intelligence plot progression that I've ever seen. Really? He expected us to take this completely seriously? And it's not meant to be funny, even? Sonic is not Antoine. He's not the type to sit there and do nothing like a deer in the headlights in a situation like this. Oh, and there's an extra story in this issue. Well, it's a bit interesting to see Roll in the Sky Patrol, but I'm just wondering why she wouldn't stay at home. So anyways, she sees a note, which I guess is Sonic telling Knuckles to meet him at the train simulator, since Red would sound like a name for Knuckles. Anyway, she then screams and sees Styx, who calls her Red. Then the title of the story is Styx vs. Roll. Sure, Styx is paranoid, but just because she's born a paranoid schizophrenic doesn't mean she's gonna violently attack people for no reason. Styx tells Roll that she won't let her get away with this, whatever this is, and she calls her a traitor. I want to know why immediately, but instead the story keeps me frustrated. Styx is a good guy. He does know that, right? Why is she sending dangerous machines at Mega Man's sister? So Roll spins her broom around, which magically saves her from a missile, acting like a force field. That looks cool, but that is one magical broom. How can she spin it that fast? Well, she's a robot, so she's just really well made. Like Dr. Light made a robot who's only meant to be a servant to him, capable of doing this just in case. I guess this was a later modification so she could protect herself from Wily's robots. Then I got really confused by reading the text box where an arrogant editor says, "Broom, get it? I'm funny. This is funny." That was unprofessional. Eventually I actually saw the sound effect that the text box was referring to, but I'm so used to ignoring sound effect words in comic books. It's not like it was part of the same text box that referred to it. I wanted to read it as kaboom, so that's why I kept reading it as until the text box explained the joke. Why make a joke? A fourth wall breaking joke in a super serious, dark and edgy situation like this. For some reason, Styx doesn't bother telling Roll why she thinks she's a traitor, and press a button saying to get ready. I don't know why she doesn't call her by her name. If they're already close friends enough that she refers her by a nickname, she's okay with it. Why would she keep that up now? This is like going along with the SEC Online plot point where Sonic's friends think he's a traitor and turn on him, but skips over telling us why, which is just even more frustrating. If this is just chaining simulation for Roll, Styx would logically tell her this from the start, not being an awful person. A trap door gets opened beneath Roll's feet, and I do think it's awesome seeing her use her broom in a creative new way. She used it to save herself from falling into the trap door. Awesome, I never saw that before. See, that's how easy it is to impress me as a critic. Just have new ideas a lot more often. If the whole story was creative, I might not be as mad at it because the positive emotions would try to balance things out. Styx turning on Roll and sending robots after someone is new as well, but it's just coming off like a bad fanfiction the whole time because I don't know why she'd do this. She's not an evil twin of Styx. That would be using a cliche, but that'd be keeping things simple because it's a cliche that's also easy to understand. Plus, I've already seen this basic idea where a friend turns on a hero in SEC Online. And I've seen the idea of Styx being turned on her friends in Eggheads and Sonic Boom where she was brainwashed into it. So while her turning on a specific person in this specific way is new, The basic concept has already been done and I'm too annoyed by it to like it. Why is she telling her that she won't get away this time? Six is entertaining me because she's smirking as Roll fights all these robots, and a page that keeps things short by not wasting my time with dialogue. She's entertaining because she's enjoying herself as a villain, but I don't see why she is. She's not a villain normally, and why is she enjoying the fact that Roll is in danger, and what she's going after keeps surviving? I didn't know Roll had super strength. So she can punch through a metal wall, and it doesn't damage her skin, even though she has artificial skin so realistic that it looks bruised like normal skin. Then she holds something in front of her, saying, "That's Mr. Beaver to you," even though she's not a Mister. And she sends Roll away in an explosion, just to relatively correct herself frantically on how she said the wrong word by mistake and embarrassed herself, ruining her one-liner. But she's not saying she wasn't a Mister. Is she possessed or brainwashed by a Mister? Like, Raw Moon? I don't know what that is. But seeing it properly used in Worlds Unite against Sonic characters might be cool. It turns out Six was after Roll's broom the whole time, asking what's clearly an inanimate object if the person it's working for is a dental plan, when clearly something without teeth wouldn't need one. So she was paranoid enough to think an inanimate object that's unable to even move is sinister enough to plot to take over the world. She does have some point when she says that screwbolt things look like angry eyes, and she lives in a sci-fi fantasy world where anything can happen. But that obviously wouldn't include a weapon that can't move or think being evil. She obviously would have explained herself to Roll right away. She would have told her to drop the broom so it wouldn't be able to defend itself against the robots. This plot was interesting. I'm glad I got to see Six as a villain enjoying herself for a change. But it could make people think it's a normal, taken for granted thing that a paranoid schizophrenic would be dangerous to someone out of nowhere, even if it's not them specifically she'd want to hurt. This flies in the face of what normally makes Six a relatively positive representation, that she's a hero who doesn't threaten innocent people. Because here, her schizophrenia is just casually used, something that's supposed to have it make sense that she'd act like this against Roll, rather than her simply being a sweet, funny person who happens to be held hostage by an illness. By the way, I don't know why Six told Roll to get out of here just because she wants to interrogate the broom. At first she tries to reason with Six like a normal person. Aw, she called her sweetie. Wow, that's sweet and humanized her. Like they really are friends. All of a sudden. This is literally the first time they've ever talked to each other. To drive the point home, she then has the brilliant idea to make Six think that the broom is a double agent. Spy on Sigma while pretending to spy for Sigma like she thought. So she thinks to talk on Six's level in a way she'd understand, humoring her and getting her out of her delusion, which caused her to be cool with the broom, when I'd be fine with Roll just getting a different one for the sake of variety. This right here, Roll is being the best friend Six has ever had. None of her other friends have been able to handle her this well. She's so patient with her that she's still friends with her after all this. Now it makes me sad that I'll barely ever get to see these two as friends. Amy could have been like this with Six, and then I would have actually bought that she was her best friend who knows how people think and what they want. Then they would have had a heartwarming friendship. Sure, Roll is lying to her here, but what other choice does she have? This page makes me glad I read the story. What a relief, this wasn't a complete waste of time. To be fair to Six, I'm sure it would be possible for an AI to be put into the broom, or at least some kind of spying technology, which wouldn't require AI that's wasted on something that can't move. It doesn't make sense that she'd think an AI would be put in something that can obviously do nothing with it, not even move. That'd be a gigantic waste of Sigma's time. Unless he just copied and pasted AI programming from some robot into its CPU. But to be fair, Sigma's evil, so maybe Six has a point in thinking that he wouldn't be above torturing an artificial intelligence by putting in a broom that can't do anything on its own. He only does stuff to be evil, so he thinks being evil is his own reward. All he has to do to make it spy on them is have cameras and a microphone hidden in it. Now this is a sci-fi world, and this would be smart of Sigma to do. So I guess I can follow Six's logic here. I just wish she explained it right away. It makes sense that paranoia would make her think this then. After all, plenty of villains have spied on the heroes in the Sonic series. Eggman's done it plenty of times. Eggman spies on the heroes in Sonic Boom basically every day. Of course Six would come to the conclusion that Sigma would spy on the heroes too, because that's what she's used to. She came to this broom conclusion with no actual evidence. But people come to conclusions with no evidence all the time without being crazy. She just convinced herself of this because she knows it'd be smart of Sigma to make Roll's broom a spy for him, and since Sigma's smart, she naturally assumes he'd be smart enough to do something smart. So that knowledge that he's smart is all the proof she needs. Okay, it does make sense. I just wish she explained herself like that. Also, I guess the reason why I ruled silence before lying to Styx didn't immediately give it away that she was lying to a paranoid person is that Styx assumed the silence meant that Roll wasn't ready to tell Styx the broom was a double agent yet because she's not part of the inner circle that first knew about it, and she wasn't sure she could be trusted with a secret, and reluctantly told her anyways. And she wants to believe she's telling the truth, rather than having been wrong. So if she suspected she was lying, she ignored the suspicion. The story ends with Styx saying that she's still keeping her eye on the broom, but will let it stay and fight with them. And the text box asked if we caught that kabroom joke. If I hadn't been outright making a full analysis of this, and instead was skimming the story as fast as I could, which I would have done if I was reading the story normally, then I probably wouldn't have caught that joke because I would have instinctively read kabroom as kaboom, as it'd be normal to write it like that. So I would have been confused by this lame self-congratulatory sentence. There's another story after this. We start out the story seeing Knuckles hiding from Proto Man behind a wall because Proto Man is shooting at him, even though he says fighting robots is his hobby. With all the recap this arc does, do you think it would have been recapped to us that he's being controlled by a Zeti? That would have made it instantly understandable for someone who read this before the Mega Man one because it's Sonic. Proto Man says that neither of them have a choice in the matter. Knuckles fortunately is written to say that Proto Man can't control his body. The mouth is part of the body! I'm speechless. I shouldn't even have to explain this, it's so obvious. He wouldn't be able to talk at all. I guess because he's being referred to as Brakeman, he still works for Wily, because he still hasn't gotten over his angst with Dr. Light being afraid of him for having free will and considering getting rid of him out loud. So I guess he still wanted petty revenge of Dr. Light for that, to the point of doing whatever evil thing Wily wants him to do. Really, I don't know why he's considered a good guy at all then. He could live literally anywhere else. I don't know why Wily wouldn't completely remove his free will to be loyal to him. I also don't know why he wouldn't immediately realize Wily would inevitably do that to him since he's evil, and that's what Wily means, instead of assuming that he would inexplicably not get rid of his free will, and turn out to be right. If he ditched Light for being against his free will, he obviously wouldn't go to Wily because of it, because he took over the Robot Masters. When he just wandered the world instead, this was the plot point in the games first. But my point is, that was an idiot ball of Proto Man to go work for Wily. Then Proto Man tells Knuckles to kill him by getting him caught in the crossfire and blowing him up in a nuclear explosion. Let me repeat that. A character tells Knuckles to blow him up in a nuclear explosion. Completely casually. In a children's comic, where the defense for bad logic is always that it's a cartoon for kids. That's super popular with the fans that hate Shadow the Hedgehog in 06 for being dark. This happened when it's more dark than anything in those games. So for consistency's sake, I hope those same fans had a problem with this too. It's not like Proto Man was acting depressed before, so it comes out of nowhere that he's perfectly fine with getting himself killed right away. It was heartwarming that Knuckles calls him stupid for it and tells him off for wanting to give up. It's especially heartwarming that we saw one panel of Knuckles looking sad. So he's not just angry. He is being pragmatic. And I understand him thinking this is the only option. But can't Knuckles just run away? Or punch him when he has an opening and knock him out? If his body's being controlled, I'm sure no amount of damage to him will make him unable to attack him anymore if the Zeti controlling broken robots is any indication. Knuckles says that he doesn't know Proto Man. So why does he already feel like Proto Man isn't the type to let others control his actions? Why does he think Proto Man's a rebel who does his own thing? He wasn't told his backstory, was he? This is just meta logic where he magically knows him because the audience does. He doesn't even say that he's got this lucky guess because he's red just like him and he's that way. So Knuckles is going for the annoying cliche where a hero tries to talk his friend out being controlled, which is a melodramatic, nonsensical trope that's somehow always taken seriously. I guess anyone would do that out of desperation if they were in that situation, but it's still annoying to watch. He even says that he already tried. Apparently he didn't try hard enough. So when he does break himself out of it, I'll just wonder why he didn't try hard enough right away if he's so independent. So he breaks himself out of being controlled by someone else. Because that makes perfect sense. It would have actually made more sense if the story was about Proto Man fighting Knuckles because he thinks Knuckles is evil. Nothing would convince him otherwise at that point. He would accuse him of lying to him. That would keep things simple and be a whole lot less dark than needlessly depressing me. This This is an easy way to make me feel sorry for Proto Man, but I feel more bad for him if it wasn't for the fact that he's apparently only wanting Knuckles to kill him because of this specific context. It's not like he hates his life as a whole, right? I guess he would. I guess he'd have no clear direction other than, of course, to go live with Light and Mega Man. But he's too rebellious to just do that and be happy. So it's his own fault his life sucks. So I guess rather than Proto Man outright making himself not be controlled anymore, he just controls himself long enough to let Knuckles win the fight with him. And now he can't be made to fight Knuckles for now because he's too damaged. Except the first story had the Zeddy control broken robots, so he would have still been controlled after this. The first story was by Joel Enos. That surprised me because I assumed it was by Flynn. I guess if it's not written by a Sonic fan, that would explain why I thought it was acceptable to have Sonic be knocked out by the weakest badniks ever. I was perfectly fine assuming they got captured because Zavik just kept pounding the ground, and Zeddy smacked him in the head once he had a small opening to attack him after falling onto the ground from the air. But instead they had a whole story with a dragged out fight like this. At least it subtly establishes that the Zeddy are invincible. It would have done a much better job with that if we saw Sonic create a tornado, and once they survived falling from the tornado, they could explain that they have rings that makes them invincible. That would perfectly justify why they beat Sonic. And I guess it makes sense that Sonic didn't just run and hide from them because he's too overconfident. And they would grab him after he found out they're invincible, so he wouldn't be able to run and hide at that point. But still, it just makes him look like an idiot the whole time because he knows that even his homie attacks do nothing to them. So he should have given up at that point. It was supremely insulting to my intelligence. They just stood there and did nothing when a bunch of mere badniks went towards him. Nobody would do that. The story wasn't canon to me. It's not encouraging when even the writers I'm not used to still suck just as much, to the point where I can't tell the difference. The second story, by Ryan Jampole instead of Flynn, is just as confusing anyways. Why didn't Six tell Roll that she was trying to attack her broom and not her? Obviously she would have told her so that she would stop scaring her and get her to just put it down so it can be destroyed easily. She would have told her that she thought the broom was a spy for Sigma right away. And then she would have said what she did at the end of the story. Like, the whole story never would have happened. I get why she thinks Sigma would be smart enough to use her broom as a spy machine, as that's smart of him. There's machines everywhere. And she's used to Boom Eggman spying on her already. It was just forced that she acted like a villain to her the whole time without an explanation. I do love the page where Roll knows exactly how to talk Six out of her delusion. She's the best friend she ever had. And they just met. Not that you'd be able to tell that here. And they're never gonna really interact again. The final story is by Alot Baker, but again, it's written like it's by Flynn anyways, having something dark happen just for shock value. So I'd never remember this. Proto Man tells Knuckles to get him killed because he thinks that's the only way to save him and get him to stop being used against his side. No other robot says this, by the way. It was sweet that Knuckles was concerned about him and told him not to do it. But it made no sense Proto Man would be able to break free of the control for even a second so we could let Knuckles beat him. That could have easily not been written. And we know that Zeddy can control broken robots, so he would have still been controlled anyways. At least a lot of it was interesting. I found it satisfying how Sonic was being hit and given a hard time for the most part, and it was interesting how Roll did so well against those robots and Six was being a bad guy for once. But I feel like the final story was just completely expendable, and the first story definitely shouldn't have been written.